You are now tuned in to the Dads Who Lift podcast. Please give us a like, share, subscribe to the YouTube account. We are on www.dadswholiftofficial.com. All the podcast links are in there. We also have an apparel line. We're on IG as Dads Who Lift Official handle. We're on Facebook, Dads Who Lift Podcast. We also have a Dads Who Lift fitness group on Facebook that's Dads Who Lift Official, a group of 30,000 like-minded dads that are just trying to be their best selves and staying fit. If that's something you're into, please check it out. But we do this stuff for free, guys, so please give us a like, share, 5-star review. We really appreciate your support. We have your host, Tyler Gaeta.
Co-host, Joel Staley.
And we have on special guest, Dr. Tim Reed with the Dad Bod Reinvented.
What's up, Tim? Me and Tim talk a lot because he is building a business similar to mine where he helps dads get jacked. So he actually hit me up yesterday asking. It was right after we got off the phone. And we were talking about bringing a guest on. And I thought of Tim at the time, but he's got a pretty hectic schedule. And then he's like, are you going to be at the office tomorrow? If so, I can bring you some coffee. We can shoot the shit a little bit. So I was like, why don't you come on the podcast, brother? Yeah. Just one of those things that worked out. Ask the universe and it provides.
Ask and you shall receive.
Yes, sir.
So I don't know much about your story other than what Joel told me, but from what he told me, it's a pretty interesting story. Obviously, you're a dad. Right. You're in the fitness industry. Kind of, I guess, walk us through how you got started in the fitness industry and kind of where you're at today.
Yeah. So you were always trying to keep up with Nick, then, your older brother.
Chris was my older brother. Yeah, well, I don't know, because that's one of the things too, is that, and I don't know if he'll ever actually listen to this podcast because I don't know if he knows about it, but he was an overweight kid growing up and he used to get picked on for being overweight. And I think that was one of the things that started getting me into like more of like bodybuilding or watching Mariusz Pudzianowski. You remember him on Strongest Man competition stuff?
Mm-hmm. I don't.
Yeah, he was like a 5'11", 300-pound brick house, but
you can say shit on here too. Just
okay, got it. I didn't remember how that verbiage went. I was like, is it brick shit house? Is it shit brick house?
You'll be all right. We won't cancel you.
Yeah, but so that was, again, super young where it started at, and then we lived in this old farmhouse, and see, this is where the tangents can go off, but we all had like our own space in the attic. Like my dad had turned the attic into the boys' room, so where we didn't have any like actual room, it was just our space, and my brothers would be over playing video games and I'd be on my bed trying to crank out push-ups. Like this is probably when I was third,
like
fourth,
prison,
fifth
it sounds
grade.
Like
I don't know what it was.
It sounds like a good. It sounds like a good childhood.
Yeah, it does.
Cool. Yeah. It was. I mean, we lived.
Sounds like the good old days.
But like you're in a cell room,
community area.
Yeah,
community area. I mean, all the guys cranking out push-ups.
Right. I mean, I was, and yes, so we lived like it was a town of 300 people, and so, but we lived about 10 minutes out in the country, so we couldn't drive, or we were so busy that my parents couldn't take us anywhere. So it was literally like us hanging out in our space outside, or at night we were in our room, but. Again, so my brother was overweight, and that was one of the things that pushed me to not want to be overweight. And then
he get made fun of, or
he got picked on. But then the thing is, though, is that I was always like, I don't know what it was. And if we get into like the how I grew up and like kind of how I see it now, because that's some of the stuff that I'm doing with my kid of like teaching him to not be shy and timid, but to like put his foot down and be like, like be more. Maybe assertive. Not aggressive, yeah, but just so that he doesn't have to go through the same kind of shit that I went through growing up, because I feel like that held me back from certain life experiences that now I'm like, fuck that. I'm going to experience this the way that I want to experience it. And that's kind of, I don't know, that's my intense approach to life, coaching, whatever it is. But
what kind of stuff when you were a kid? I mean, what are you talking about? Timidness that led you to be timid?
Yeah, I don't really know. That's, again,
is that just who you were as a person?
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I think this is just deeper conversations that I've had with myself and other people, but I think there was some fear from my parents that then got set into me that then made me super timid. So kind of, again, going off on a tangent, but one of these, so I work out at Lifetime Fitness up here in Omaha. I've seen you up there a few times.
I don't go there anymore, but in the past, I think I've seen you up there.
And so there was one day when Duke and I were heading over to Lifetime, and I gave him the little key card to get in. And I was like, can you give this to the front desk person? He's like, no, I don't want to. And I was like, well, why not? You could hear like the timidity in his voice. And I was like, why are you like, are you afraid? Or do you think you're going to mess up, that you're going to get it wrong? And he shook his head, yes. And I was like, Dad is fucked. Or I didn't say that, but Dad's messed up plenty of times. I've got plenty of stuff wrong. And I want you to know that you have my permission to get things wrong. And I think that's something that my parents never had that conversation with me. Of like, dude, you can fuck up, but just know that you can figure stuff out too. And I think in that, there was that kind of, like that timidity of, man, this is just more my story, but growing up small town Nebraska, I was always the good kid. And so because I was the good kid, I didn't want to do anything wrong to be seen as this bad kid. So then I would hold back from those experiences I was telling you about.
You felt like people had a certain image of you and you had to live up to that image.
I had to live up to it.
I want to use this real quick because this is a great point, man. And I just had this happen with my own son last night. There's certain things so when I grew up, there's things that I learned as an adult. And I remember thinking to myself, like, man, I wish my parents would have fucking told me about that.
Right.
Like, I wish that would have been explained to me, you know? And I get how it wasn't, because life just happens. People are busy and sometimes people just roll with things. Like, a lot of times, you know, if you're, you know, both parents are working, you're in, you know, middle income family or whatever, you know, they're both working. It's hard. Sometimes it's like they're just long days and you go by and, you know, kids aren't really explain things. I had to figure things out and like learn things for myself. Right. You know what I mean? Through what I saw. But just like you telling your son, like, you can fuck up. I had a deal last night where I've been working on I believe in God. There was a time where I was struggling with my faith. And so I've been working on my faith and I've been praying a lot more. I got a coach, Caleb Moran, that's been helping me with that. And so I've been praying a lot more and having more discussions with God, or, you know, for you guys, well, I guess whatever. If you believe in God, you do. If you don't, you don't. But for me, I do. So I've been having more discussions and talking to my God or my higher power, which I see as God, as just like a friend. You know what I mean? And so every single night when I put my son to bed, I always give him a hug, a kiss, tell him he's the best boy ever, you know. And I always tell him to say a prayer before bed, but I don't actually like pray with him. And so he's had this prayer in his mind of like, you know, the typical church prayer, like, God is good. Thank you for the day. Thank you for the food. Thank you for whatever, you know, good night. And so last night I actually took the time and I was like, you want to say a prayer together? And he's like, no, I got it. And I was like, well, what do you pray? And he told me that typical prayer. And I was like, you know that you can pray to God like you're just talking normal to a friend, right? And he's like, no. And I was like, yeah, man, you can tell him anything. Like, you can talk about your fears, your wants, your wishes, you know, you can cry to God, you can tell him things that are hurting you, things that you wish for, you know, but I said, always be in gratitude at the end, you know, always be thankful. And it was crazy because it was just one of those moments like you're talking about where like, that's just shit that a lot of times just isn't explained to kids. Like he had no clue in his mind that was even an option, you know what I mean? And so I kind of had this epiphany and I was like, man, I need to start explaining more things. Like, it's okay to learn from experience. I think there's actually a lot of value in watching and learning from experience, but there's also some things that kids need to be told as well and explained and told that things are all right. Yeah.
And I honestly think like, and you said you had an epiphany, but honestly, like, I just think that's just mindful living, or mindfulness of being a dad, of like, you know what, I've got an opportunity here. I can either go out and sit on the couch and not, you know, like, take advantage of this, or I can stay in the room for 5 more minutes and.
Oh, I went to fucking bed.
Oh, did you?
Actually, I had to read. I read my book and then I went to bed.
Well, I mean, like, but that,
I know what you're saying.
In that lesson that you were, you know, teaching him, or the same thing with me of like, I could have easily been like, okay, give me the card. I'll do it. But it's like, all right, there's something here that needs to be brought up for
why do you think kids are timider these days? It seems like a lot of kids are more timid.
I don't know that that's the case. I think it all depends on how you raise kids. I mean, I'm more of a strict parent, so my son's probably a little bit more timid just because he's grown up with structure and what's the word for it? Man, I can't think of what you don't ever want to have so much structure to where like you force kids in a box and make them feel like they can't be themselves. But at the same point in time, when kids are grown up, I think when kids are grown up knowing, you know, what's right and what's wrong, or being, you know, punished for certain things, like it kind of gives them this deal of like, they're trying to figure everything out. So it kind of gives them this deal like, oh, is that okay? Is that not okay? And
Do you think
that
being an only child contributes to that a little bit? Because like you said, you have 6 brothers and sisters, 4 brothers.
4 brothers, 2 sisters, yeah.
So, and you're all in the same room. So I can only imagine you look over and Chris is like, his blanket's moving. You're like, what's that going? So you just learn fast. You're not going to be timid if your brothers are both like wanking it in the bed next to you. You're going to be like, oh, okay. Like, so if you are figuring everything out for yourself, I can assume you'd be a little bit more cautious.
Yeah, I honestly
think it has everything to do with how you're brought up.
I think there's a lot of it. And so I don't know. I don't know if people or kids are more timid these days but my only thought is I think a lot of it comes if kids are more timid these days, then I would say it has a lot of just craziness going on in the world. There's a lot of fear, and then the parents have that fear, and then they portray that fear, and then those kids pick up on it, and then now they're afraid of life too, to where, like you guys are both badasses, to where I imagine.
I don't know about that.
No? I mean.
But social media probably has a lot to play in that too. Yeah. You know what I mean?
For sure.
I think if you have scared parents and you project your fears, your kids
everybody's on social media, so everybody's worried about what everybody thinks about them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I recently I found myself getting caught up too much again on social media. So I deleted, I'm a single dude. I deleted all my dating apps. Might as well just throw it out there. And I deleted my, like Facebook. I deleted my Snapchat, but I deleted like my Facebook app and my Instagram app. And now I've just been, either logging on the computer, which kind of sucks. It's not as easy as a phone. So honestly, I've just been like re-downloading the apps once or twice a day just to check it, do my business stuff, and then deleting them again as soon as I check it. Because I was finding myself on the phone constantly. And it's like with social media, it's so easy to get wrapped up into this validation, this fake ass validation of like, all right, I'm going to put this picture up. How many likes did I get? Like, oh man, it's been 30 minutes. I already got 100 likes. Fuck yeah. Or like,
I never get 100 likes.
No. Or like, it's been 30 minutes. Like, damn, I only got 10. Like, man, maybe I should drop this picture. Anybody that posts shit on social media, and you can say that like, oh no, it's for the business or whatever. And sometimes it is just for business, but anybody that posts stuff on personal pages that are like pictures of them, I don't give a fuck to what degree it is. At some point they want some kind of validation.
Don't even get Tim started on his TikTok here.
Like at some point they want somebody to like what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like they want credit for something. And when people are constantly looking for things, or they're always worried about what the next guy's doing, or, comparing themselves to other people on social media, which is fake, by the way, because it's all a highlight reel. Like what you see on social media is not true life. Like I could have had the worst day in the world and fucking, a family member could have died, but I put one picture of me up smiling on social media looking like I just had a blast, and like you would think my whole day is picture perfect.
Right. And I think they're, again, kind of like just kind of I don't want to go back to the level of mindfulness, but so bringing up, a death in the family, whatever. So when my grandma died, actually last year, October 3rd of last year. And I made a post about, because I've made a few posts with my grandma in, just saying how she was a 92-year-old that she's like, or I was helping, Duke and I were helping her out in my car one time. She's like, Tim, I think I'm slowing down. I was like, what? Has my mom been talking to you too? Because my mom's always saying, Tim, you just need to slow down, whatever. Mm-hmm. But anyways, what's that? Right. Project. Yeah. And just because, right. And we can get back into that thing. But that's real, though. Like, yeah, you just picked up on it just from listening to me. Like, it's the same thing. And, but yeah, so like, so I've introduced my grandma to my Instagram, to my Facebook, and then she passed away a year ago. And, I don't know. So I just shared kind of like she hit the end of her time, whatever. And that was probably one of my most, liked or most engaged posts on Facebook. And one of the things too, is because you brought up a lot of people, what did you say? You said a lot of people will post to mainly for like that validation. Yeah. And I think for the most part, anything we do is really this is again, just
everybody wants to be liked and loved.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
But then at the same time, like there's certain, I would say like a ratio of like, cause when I put stuff like with me with my shirt off on Instagram, like it's cool to get, dude, you're so inspiring, all that kind of stuff and that kind of validation. But I honestly, like, there's a certain percentage of, like, maybe it's like 20% validation, but then like 80%, hey, I want to inspire the fuck out of you to get after this kind of thing, you know? And so even with business too, like, we're all like, we've started businesses to take care of our family, but there's also like, maybe that's like 40% of it, but then the other 60% is, I know that I have something where I can actually offer value. And so it's not necessarily, you know, like that, hey, I'm only posting this for validation, or I'm only posting this to make money. It's the
majority of people. I don't know that the majority of people are doing that though.
And yeah,
I mean, I agree.
Yeah.
It can be used for good. Like,
right.
Our Dads Who Lift group, I believe, is used for good. Like, this podcast is used for good. We're trying to help people. It can be used for good, but I think the majority of people are not. Right. You know, and maybe not. Maybe
they just want to be. Yeah, I think you're right. The majority of people, just like you said, everyone wants to be liked. I think that's how most people use their social media too.
Yeah, that very well could be. Yeah.
Or for money or whatever. I mean, I don't know. But back to the kids, man. I 100%. Kids' personalities are shaped through experience when growing up and whatever they went through. You know what I mean? And
right now, especially
I don't really
when we're
think
stuck
that
at
there's
home,
a right or wrong.
That's like all parents.
Yeah.
If they're not going to school, they're not allowed to see their friends.
Right.
It falls a lot on the parents.
I don't think there's a right or wrong, but like, you look at, I'm more structured. That's just who I am. So like, I'm going to be more of a disciplinary parent, you know, which may make my son a little bit more timid, but it's going to give him other values down the road to be successful, like for business or things like that. So I think there's a good balance. You know, I think of our buddy Josh Horseman, which is the podcast manager here. His child, great kid, awesome kid, but he's kind of a little bit more like lenient as a parent. Like, his kid just runs around everywhere. Like, you know, we'll be at the lake, and I'm not talking shit on him. This is like, my point is that there's not a right or wrong, but we'll be at the lake, and his kid will be like at the family next to our camp area.
I remember that.
Playing with like their kids, and like they're basically, he's like out just chilling with us, and they're like, these women that have their own kids there like watching him and playing with him. And he's just like cool with it. And this kid is super free spirited, just runs around, loves everybody. He's not timid at all, not shy at all, doesn't give a fuck. And that's just his parenting way. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. I wouldn't be cool with that. I'd be like, hey, you know, it's my kid. You need to be over here with me. You know, I don't know these people. I don't want you running around on the lake. But that's just differences on who we are and how we parent. Now, my son may grow up to be a little bit more timid, but maybe a little bit more business oriented, assertive, structured. Maybe. Who knows? His kid may be a little bit more free-spirited, a little more carefree.
He's going to be a hell of a salesman if he can just approach people.
Yeah, right? So, I mean, there's pluses and minuses for both, but I think it comes 100% into how you raise your children. And I think the key is to find a healthy balance. Like, I'm a little bit more structured, so that my kid is a little bit more timid because of that. But I also instill in him that he can do anything that he wants. Like, I don't want my son to grow up with any kind of limitations, because I think that's the worst part. I think that's the biggest key in raising a successful child, outside of like showing them love and morals and what's right or wrong, is limitations. Like, is not having limitations. Like, I tell him he can do anything that he wants, no matter what. Can I do that, Dad? Sometimes like I can see a little, I don't know about fear, but like lack of confidence. Like, you know, can I do that, Dad? It's like,
yeah.
Of course you can fucking do that, man. Like, it's never a doubt in my mind. I don't care what it is. You can do it. Like, you can do anything. You know, he's playing football. This is his first year playing football. I've talked about it many times, but he's a small kid, but he's a beast. But he's like the smallest kid on his football team. First year playing football, went right into tackle. All these other kids have been playing flag football for like 3 years. You know what I mean? So he's smaller than everybody, less experienced. He may not be the best dude on the team, but I tell him every time, like, don't have doubt, man. You can do this. You can do anything that you want as long as you give it your all. I don't give a fuck. You know, as long as you put your whole heart into it, you can do it. Go out there and do it. And he kills it.
That doesn't sound like what, and I'm not trying to get you in trouble with your parents or anything, but that doesn't sound like the messaging you were getting a lot.
Yeah, I don't know what the kind of messaging I was getting growing up, really. Because I was still an athlete. Like, I, you know, broke records in high school and even in college too. And so I was still an athlete, but even when I was, there was still some kind of lack of confidence because of the lack of experience. So actually I don't know if he's in this group or not, but Coach Adams, I think you've seen me post about him, but he was my college running back coach, came from a poor family, and Texarkana, Arkansas. Went and played NFL football for the Jets. So he graduated from Doane College, where I played football at, went and played football for the Jets, and then came back and coached. And so he coached me all 4 years, and he still says it. He's like, I remember you coming in as a freshman, because my nickname in college was 300, because the 300 Spartans movie had just came out. And yeah, so they called me
abs.
They called me 300 is how is what they said. But yeah, so my freshman year, like I started all 4 years as a running back, a fullback, and even a slot receiver. Like wherever they wanted me at, like that's where I was going. So I had the athletic ability, but there was still not the mindset piece that I was confident in my abilities or in my capabilities. And I think that's because and even to get into it. So I would have just finished my junior year. So I was a team captain my junior year, wasn't very vocal. We had our exit meeting the end of my junior year, and then he's like, Timothy, I've been seeing this since you were a freshman. Like you look like I'll try and say it in his voice. He's like, you look like a goddamn bodybuilder, but you lack confidence. And I was like, I know people have said that my entire life growing up. Like, Tim, you just need to be more confident. Like I made a post about this the other day, but I used high school track. I used to change into my track uniform behind a tree for whatever reason, like stupid and like pathetic. And I share that confidently now because I'm like, fuck, I'll take my shirt off in the middle of a store.
So what changed, man?
Yeah, that's where I'm curious.
Yeah. So where'd you get to a point to where you changed that? How did you change that?
So, man, this stuff's going to fire me up. Hopefully I don't bang on the table with this. But,
Bang it.
But so, yeah, like that talk honestly was that talk with Coach Adams. He said, this whole next year, I don't care how many yards you run, how many touchdowns you get, we're working on this confidence thing. And it was honestly what he told me. Is there a video on this? Or is this just all vocal?
Oh, no, there's video. Yeah, your camera would be that one right there.
His whole thing was that, so everyone has their comfort zone. You take a step outside of it. Now you've got a bigger comfort zone. You take another step outside, and you just keep taking smaller steps outside. And then and again, like this is just, so that happened, I'm 31. That I had that talk with him when I was 21 years old, so 10 years ago. But I still have that same kind of thought process of all I've got to do is take a small step out. I experience it, whether it's good or bad, it's still something to pull from. I take another step out, but in stepping out of my comfort zone came that experience that I was lacking because I was always held to my comfort zone. And then in that experience came the confidence that I can experience. And then now I'm like, fuck, I'm going to go travel by myself. Like I cruise. Bring me back to this, but this is just a thought that people who grew up with me, like since graduating college, I've done some crazy stuff that I don't know if I want to bring up yet, but not yet in my life. But I've experienced some things to where
we found out Joel's first wife was a squirter on this podcast. So
okay,
all right.
I'm just trying to think if, do I share it here? I don't know.
You don't have to. Man. You can go as far as you want.
But yeah, like I made some choices to step outside of my comfort zone to friends in college would be like, you won't do this. And I was like, well, watch me. I'm just going to.
He's a male stripper.
Damn it. You knew? Did
You told me.
Did I tell you?
Real recognized real, bro.
Damn it. Yeah, and I think I've told some of my clients too. Yeah, I mean, now that it's out, hopefully that doesn't ruin my brand. But
it's all good.
No, it's all good.
But no, like,
man, I'm the only one at this table that was never a male stripper.
We'll get you there, bro.
Fuck.
We'll get you there.
Yeah, but
someday,
like that was
someday.
So my junior year, after like my buddies and I were walking around somewhere.
So that's got to build some confidence, right?
Well, but that's the thing though, is like, I had that talk.
Laurel's over here in the corner looking at us like, oh my God, you fucking guys.
This is a pretty high stage right here. But
it's a wobbly stage.
But yeah, so I had that conversation, went back home to working on the farm that summer, and then we ended up going downtown. And some friends, so I was with some guys, we met up with some girls, and they were like, hey, you guys should come here with us. And I was like, all right, let's go. We go in there. My buddies signed me up for this amateur strip competition. And in the back of their mind.
And this is pre-married or after married?
I was 21.
Oh, okay. So this is pre-married. Yeah. Okay.
This was after I had that talk with Coach Adams. he said, you need to start stepping outside of your comfort zone, blah, blah, blah.
And then you're like, fuck yeah, I'll step outside. I'll just strip.
Well, and it was like, that was part of, like, I needed that permission almost. Like that was, and Coach Adams didn't say, hey, go strip at an amateur strip club, but he was like
the helicopter.
He was basically giving me that permission that my parents never gave me to just go and do stuff.
Right.
And so then what happened, went back to working on the farm. And then, buddies and I went downtown, met up with some girls. Girls like, hey, come here. Buddies signed me up thinking, you know what, he's not going to do it. But then in my mind, I was like, you know what, when I'm 80 years old, if this is the only chance that this is a legit thought.
Right.
But if this is the only chance that I ever get to say that I was a stripper, then I'm going to do it so that when I'm 80 years old, sitting on the porch swing, talking to my grandkids that are in a nursing home, it's like, yep, grandpa used to be a stripper. Like that was my main reason for doing it. And so they called me back and I was like, I'm going to go. And my buddies were all looking at me like, dude, wait, you're really going back there? And I was like, fuck yeah, I am. Like, you know, it was kind of, and that was the start of it. And then, and then, I mean, now I feel like one of probably and even friends from high school have found out about that. And they're like, what? Little Timmy Reed's a stripper? And it's like, fuck yeah. So, and
he still strips on Saturday nights, ladies.
No, I'm retired. Hung up the other way. But that was a start of it. And it wasn't like the money or
you didn't die. You realized like, that wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it was. I was like, nobody made fun of me. Nobody, like I didn't get booed off the stage, or it was just me experiencing life in a way that I knew that I needed to take a chance on experiencing it. And then it was that getting out of my comfort zone, realized I didn't die. All right, now what else can I do to challenge myself? Do something else. Holy shit, same kind of thing. Reflect on that. Now do something else. And then now I feel like I can, I still have my shy, timid tendencies, I'm sure, but I also know how to handle them better because I've been in those situations more because I put myself in those situations. And so one of the things, like after my divorce, I was like, I got to get out of here. And so within 3 days, within 3 days, I booked a trip out to California. I flew into San Jose, rented a Ford Mustang convertible, cruised down the Pacific Coastal Highway, and ran into cool people this was after my divorce. So 2010 is when I had that conversation with Coach Adams, but there's a lot that happened in between that. But like part of me, it's like, man, like I went from being this shy, timid kid to where now I'm traveling in a Mustang by myself, meeting random people, having a beer with people from Beijing on, on this cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean. It's like, what the heck?
Hey man, life is what you make it.
Right. And that's the thing is like, again, going back to that whole thing is like my parents, they were busy. There was obviously 7 of us. They couldn't give us all the mindfulness that I can give my one child or that you can give yours or that you can give yours. But like they just didn't know what they didn't know either. And so like
I think everybody has to blaze their own path too, man.
For sure, yeah.
You
totally.
can do all the things you can do as a parent, but a kid's still going to have to find themselves. Yep. They're still going to have to fail to figure out who they are, and they're still going to have to course their own life.
Even in that, like that's that same kind of mindfulness that I can tell Duke too of like, hey, I'm going to tell you to do these things because I want you to stay safe, but you also need to understand that you're going to do this thing however you want to do it, and you're going to learn from it however you're going to learn from it. And that's so even though, like you're spot on with that, but that's still mindfulness to instill in a kid that, you know what I mean?
And so we kind of blew past so you have one son, Duke.
Just one. Yeah.
One. And how old is he?
He just turned 5 on the August 20th.
Okay. Yep. Nice. And so we get to this point, shy, timid kid, finally get out of your comfort zone. At some point in there, you got married.
Yep.
Then went through a divorce. Mm-hmm. I guess tell us about how you use the divorce to continue to grow outside of going to California. Yeah. You know what I mean? Joel was saying something about there's something in there, a good story, a good learning point with your kid and kind of losing yourself after the divorce and kind of coming back into where you are now. And I think that's some really powerful stuff. Yeah.
So went through the divorce.
Not to put you on the spot.
Good. Honestly, like that's the thing though, is I get emotional talking about it because it's real, but it's also cool stuff. Like even just thinking back of like, holy shit, like my life was miserable. That was October of 2017 is when we got divorced. And
So 3 years ago.
yeah,
I don't believe in failure, man. I believe in learning
right.
experiences.
It's the same
you
thing.
know?
Yep.
And so things suck sometimes, but as long as you can grow from them and move forward.
And that's 100%. And I think that's what, like, I was, so what I was I would have been 27, 28. I don't remember how old I was, but yeah, like so again, small town kid, you grow up thinking that after college you need to find a girlfriend, get married. I ended up going through that process, and like after that, getting married, after becoming a doctor of physical therapy, I was like, oh, I've got my shit figured out. And then when I was going through the divorce, it was a year of what is going on. And I mean, not to jump ahead, but I think one of the biggest things that I've realized is that I think the one thing that I have figured out about life now is that I will never have it figured out. And I feel like that's why there's some kind of calmness or peace in how I live. Because,
absolutely.
like, it's not, when I was 28 years old, like, I was like, man, I've got a doctor of physical therapy. I'm married. I have a kid. Well, now all that's going to shit. And for that year, I was miserable. I was miserable because I wasn't able to I was coming home to an empty apartment. I wasn't able to play on the ground with my kid, drive cars around. And then because I was miserable.
And I assume you used to have your kid 24/7 when you were married, then you go through a divorce, and now you're probably split custody type deal.
Yeah.
So that's.
And especially after. Yeah, like even right after the divorces, I was like, man, this is super strange. So then I was hitting up old high school friends. I was on dating apps, like giving attention to any girl that would give it back. And that's why, again, like it's pathetic, but
it's real though. A lot of people do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people do
goes
that.
back to looking for validation.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And because I didn't have it in myself, like I didn't have any kind of self-worth. And so.
And us as men too, not to cut you off, but us as men, we don't get a ton of validation, man. Like a lot of people don't realize that. Like we're the strong ones. We don't need anybody. We don't need anything. And it's like, yeah, well, we kind of still do.
Yeah, I don't know where to go with that, but no, I'm with you. But I think also too is that once you like, we definitely still need validation, but we're even getting it here from ourselves. Like we're talking about real shit, and we're like, you know what? We're some fucking badasses. And then in that, like even in the Dads Who Lift group, like there's people. I don't know, like dudes just need dudes. Like that's what my son. Like he hangs out with his mom and his grandma quite a bit. It's like my son needs to be around dudes, and
yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
And so, like same thing, we all need to be around dudes. Like we need our dude time. When I was married, I wasn't getting it, and like because I was married, I didn't want to go out with some of my single friends just because. And anyways, where was I going?
Dude, I'm always saying that. You can't, like, I have a couple buddies that are married and, like, they just want to hang out with their wife all the time. I was like, I don't even know how you live your life, man. I need, like, at least one night a week. And this podcast, too.
Oh, for sure.
Is just, fucking dude time.
Yeah.
Like, you need it.
Right. Just to talk about real dude shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were talking about you were married, then you were in your apartment. No one was there.
Yeah. So then I got caught up chasing girls, calling up old buddies that we were going out to bars. Honestly, 3 to 4 days a week, like drinking, throwing darts, and over like now looking back, I realized that I didn't realize it in the time because I was kind of like stuck in that rut of like not knowing how to get out of it. So I was like, well, my life's fucked up, so I'm just gonna let it stay fucked up. But yeah, then I was chasing girls, hanging out with buddies, throwing darts, drinking 3 to 4 nights a week. And now what I am reflecting back on is that was really just my way of distracting, or what do they say? Misery seeks company or whatever. Same kind of thing of like, I was miserable. I was like, I need to get out of this apartment. So I was doing anything and everything I could in the most pathetic way to get out of my apartment and go do something. But then what I realized is that number one, those girls didn't give a shit about me. Those guys, they didn't really care. Like we would go downtown Omaha and it's like, man, this is going to be fun. Go
drinking
out.
buddies, man.
Yeah. But then the thing is that I end the night by like, whenever I go out, I usually get lost anyway, just cause I end up go out and meet, different groups of people, but then we all intend to meet back up, like just make sure we're all good before we head home. And, but what I started noticing is my buddies would be like, hey, do you want to come meet me here? And they would be actually bringing me there because they were meeting a girl. And then they would leave with the girl, and then I would just be at this bar by myself. And I was like, these dudes don't even care about me. Like, they're just, And anyways, so I started picking up that, these girls were just hitting me up like, hey, I'm hungry. You want to go grab something to eat? So I would go buy them something to eat. Or my buddies were hitting me up like, hey, you want to go grab a drink? And then I'd be the one picking up the tab. And it's like, dude, you haven't even bought a round. Or like when the round would come up, they'd go and hide in the bathroom. It's like, what? So, and anyways, so I started realizing that they didn't care. And then one night, which I just made a post about this recently, and it's real, but Duke had fallen asleep on my lap. We were watching a movie, and then I picked him up, carried him into bed. And as I was carrying him into bed, he opened his eyes and said, I love you, Dad. And that was like that was that point where it was like that level of agitation of what the fuck am I doing with my life? Why am I putting so much energy into these people who don't care about me? I need to be putting more energy into myself, into my son. Cut all that drinking stuff off, started reading books, listening to podcasts, journaling. And then that's when I got into Instagram. And then that's where all of this honestly has come from. And that's why it's crazy, but that's why it's Dad Bod Reinvented, of not just reinventing your body and all that shit, but like reinventing like
way of life.
Right, exactly. The decisions you make, the position you take on life of like, I'm living this for me, for my family, for my son, and I don't care what the fuck other people think.
Dude, it's so powerful how much it matters what you put into your body. Not only like food wise, but knowledge, like, in
your mind too.
Yeah,
that's sure that's included.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant. So like, who you surround yourself with. I mean, 100%. It's just so crazy how you can go from, I think we've all been there, in this place where you're kind of surrounding yourself with, we'll just say toxic things, in your environment. And then you get to this place of like, dude, this isn't right. This doesn't feel good. And I truly believe it's like an inner check. Like, you can feel it inside you. Like, this is not okay. This is not what I want out of my life. And then, your son tells you that he loves you. And that's just like a big wake up call. Like, man, this is my purpose. This is what I'm here for. This is what I want. This is what feels right. And, man, 100%, whatever you put into your mind, your body, your soul will propel you in different directions. Once you start filling yourself with knowledge, expanding your mindset, reading the books, listening to the podcast, surrounding yourself with positive people, it's crazy how much your life can change.
Right. And how much clearer like an overall vision of the end result becomes. But then even like, this is more for, not for you guys, but for people listening too, of just like, there becomes a level, or you get this level of agitation, which I got to, and then like my son saying that, like, just made me, because I had hit that level of agitation for a while, but I never made any decisions to act on it. It was just, all right, why am I doing this? Okay, well, I'm just going to go out and do it again. And then eventually, like, I was doing it so much and having the same reflection, but never making any decision to move on it. And then all of a sudden my son said that, and that was like, all right, this is my time to make that decision. So same thing for the guys listening, whether it's fitness, mindset, or really anything. It's like, you're going to move along maybe for a couple of weeks, and then you're going to fall off. And that's just normal human nature. But you have to come back to that end goal of, why am I doing this? Why is it important? And then maybe you're off for a couple of weeks, and then you go for another couple of weeks, and then now you're off for maybe a week, and then you go for another couple of weeks, and then you're off a day and you go for another couple of weeks. And the next thing you know, it's like, all right, I'm fucking on. And then like, that's kind of just another mindfulness thing too, that like I don't have all my shit figured out. And that's one of the things, is I know that I never will. But I also know what my end goal is, and I'm never going to stop moving forward towards it. I just don't necessarily know the path that's going to get me there in the most effective way yet. It's just kind of like what you brought up earlier of just learning and implementing.
People live life for destinations, man. And this goes with what you said, and I agree. But one thing that I've realized is that there's no fucking destination.
Oh, man. I'm reading a book right now called The Purposeful Man or something like that. It was recommended to me. And that's what they say is like, so many guys especially live their life. And it's funny because I was just out with a buddy last week who was saying this, but it says so many people live their lives like, all right, once this is done, then I'll finally be this.
Destination disease.
And the guy I always talk to, he was like, yeah, man, I'm working my ass off right now. I'm missing out on some time with the family, but when I hit 40, I'm going to retire. I won't have to worry about it. Like, dude, no, it doesn't work like that. It's going to keep, you might retire, but your brain's going to be callous and you're going to find other shit to occupy yourself. Because at this point, you're going to be 10 years into this marriage. Your kid's going to be 10 years old, and you're not going to be able to go from having avoided them for 10 years to now spend all your time with them. It doesn't, you're going to find something else to occupy all your time. That destination never comes. So you need to learn how to find, what do we talk about in every single goddamn podcast?
Balance.
That balance. And yeah, you nailed it. There's no destination. You got to just live for today. And I mean, you got to make good choices for the future, but you got to get out of that mindset. All right, well, I'm working my ass off right now, so this will happen. Which, I mean, you got to work your ass off too. So
I think the key though is to finding your passion and following your passion, and then being mindful of your priorities, like, or making priorities based off of what you really care about in life.
Well
right?
said.
So, figure out what really means to you, or what really matters to you in your life. Like, we've talked about before, but like, if I'm going to die tomorrow, I don't really give a fuck about answering my emails. Like, obviously that's something that I have to do to make money and run my businesses, but that's not going to be on my top priority of my life list. You know what I mean? The top priority of my life list is my family, my son, my friends, experiences, traveling, seeing the world, my relationship with my higher power, things that actually fucking matter to me, and there's always going to be those mundane things that you have to do to keep things rolling, but it doesn't mean that it has to take precedence in your life.
And what you were talking about is, all right, I got to see what my friends are doing, call up old friends. I got to chase these girls around, which there's nothing wrong with that as a single guy. But it sounds like you were really trying to distract yourself.
Right.
And that's, if we're talking about mindfulness, that's something I often realize with myself is if I am digging holes in my own life, it's like, okay, well, look at my schedule. I don't have enough going on. Or like I'm in the living room having to watch Bubble Guppies with my daughter and like just bored out of my mind. So I'm like, all right, well, like what can I do just so I'm doing something? And that's when I start getting into trouble. But like when Gate is doing 75 hard, he's got to work out 2 times a day, gallon, read. Like it's hard to get into trouble, man, because you're busy all goddamn day.
Yeah.
So that's another thing is just being mindful of like, all right, this thing that I keep coming back to, am I distracting myself? And if I am, like, why? What am I afraid of if I go this direction? But so you talk about getting out of your comfort zone. I know you recently left your like 9 to 5 to go all in on your online business. Tell us about that.
Oh, where do I?
That had to take some balls.
That took some balls for sure. But kind of like what you just said too of, what do you say? Find your purpose, find your passion, all that.
Yeah. Follow your purpose. Yeah. Or follow your passion. Sorry.
And so when I graduated college, I became a certified strength and conditioning specialist, went down to Scottsdale, Arizona and worked down there. And at that time we called it No Lifetime Fitness because I was going into the gym, training clients from 6 a.m. till 9 o'clock at night. And in my mind, I was like, if I ever have a family, this is no way that I want to be living life. So then, and I went to college, majored in exercise science and athletic training, but then it was a pre-physical therapy program. So I knew I wanted to do physical therapy, but I also knew that I wanted to get out of the Nebraska community. And I moved down to Arizona with a 70-year-old retired guy I found on Craigslist 2 weeks before. Yeah, part of that experience stuff.
Pencil mustache.
He was actually a retired accountant for General Motors, but he was a pretty cool dude. But yeah, anyways, so went down there and I met a lot of wealthy businessmen. Like one of the guys that started Tasers, right? Tasers?
Brazzers?
Joel right away goes to Brazzers. The poor
Taser, right? Is that the gun you shoot? Like
yeah.
Tasers. For some reason, it was throwing me off. But yeah, so
he invented tasers.
Yeah,
gotcha.
There was a bunch of really well-to-do people down there that I was learning a lot from business-wise, but I still had my small-town Nebraska morals, and anyways.
Well, it wasn't Brazzers, so.
No, it wasn't that. No. But yeah, then ended up getting accepted into physical therapy school. Kind of that destination disease thing of like, all right, once I become a doctor of physical therapy, I'm going to have this high level of education and my life's going to be set. But then when I graduated, I took a course, or I continued to like, I would fly out. So I moved back to Omaha because Duke was born at that time. But then I was still flying out to Arizona once a month to be mentored by this orthopedic manual and spine guru. So like I specialize in orthopedic manual therapy and spine rehab. So I was cracking necks, like my specialty was low back, neck, and thoracic spine pain. And it was really just the reason why I was flying out to Arizona to be mentored by this guy is because of how diligent he would treat his patients of like, okay, this is what I'm going to do to help you. But then he would teach them the process of actually coaching them how to manage it for themselves for the long term. So not just, hey, quick, snap your neck. Okay, see ya. It was, okay, I'm going to crack your neck. Then we're going to do these follow-up exercises to take care of the issue. And it was the diligence that which he treated people to where I was like, I'm going to keep flying out and be mentored by him, because there wasn't anybody that I found doing that in Omaha. And so then I got into some clinics here in Omaha, and it was mainly it wasn't a good healthcare model. It was mainly a business model, which you and I kind of talked about, of just, hey, I want you to come in or you're going to come in for this many days for this many weeks. And like, even if so I was getting patients better in 3 or 4 visits. There was someone I remember, they had headaches for years, and then just because of a stretch and me being diligent and how I was actually treating them, the headaches were gone in 3 visits. So I was like, hey, you don't need to come in and see me anymore. Keep doing your exercises. And then I got in trouble for, hey, their script says come into the clinic 3 times a week for 12 weeks. I'm like, why? Like, that's, again, so the whole idea of a business model, not so much a patient-centered model. And so I ended up leaving that job. I accepted a job working as a lead PT for a few nursing homes in like Omaha and surrounding areas, which allowed for more flexibility in my schedule. And that was actually after my divorce. So then when Duke and I had when Duke said that and I kind of made that change, I was like, all right, I was like, am I really just going to get up in the morning, grab my coffee, drive into work, see my patients, come home? I was like, this is annoying. Like, this isn't fulfilling any kind of purpose. And again, through journaling, podcasts, reading, I started my Instagram and had people starting reaching out on Instagram because of me being a doctor of physical therapy. I started working with clients that was mainly just focused on fitness and nutrition. And that was, again, kind of the start of it, of just, hey, you're a 30-year-old dad, you're a physical therapist, I need some help. Can you help me with this? Yep, sure. Started taking on clients. And then I started realizing that people needed more than fitness and nutrition stuff. They needed accountability. They needed support. They needed like help with their mindset. Anyways, so like I've got guys that own their own nutrition company. I've got college strength and conditioning coaches, college football coaches. I'm working with 4 physical therapists right now. And it's like, you guys all know this shit. What do you need? Like, honestly, when their application came through, I was like, what do you guys need my help for? So I'm so busy that I don't have time to focus on my own health. And I feel like I'm like, one guy the other day said, I don't feel like I'm worth taking care of the patients that I'm taking care of, because I'm not even focusing on my own health. And so they hired me to work with them. But again, like, that's what I've realized is it's not just, hey, you need workouts, you need nutrition. It's like, no, you need that same kind of dude personality that we're talking about of
community.
Hey, right. You're a fucking athlete. You need to start thinking like one, and you need to be surrounded by the dudes that are thinking the same way so you can actually move forward on this stuff instead of questioning what you're doing with life. And so I started realizing more of that. And then now it's grown into something bigger. And so to going back about quitting the job of, again, like being a single dad, so paying for child support, a bunch of stuff that I've still got to pay for. But it was, it was just one of those things where, I don't know, it was stepping outside of my comfort zone, taking risks. I remember the day that I did it, I said, I wrote it on my mirror. It's now washed off, but it said,
don't be a pussy.
No, it wasn't that. It said, take risks for.
That's what Joel tells himself every day.
That is what I tell him, dude. That's my
Don't
go-to.
be a pussy.
Is it?
Yeah, I'll let you finish your story, but I do have a funny story about that.
No, I can't remember what I wrote on the mirror, but I think it was just take risks for you and for Duke, or believe in your. I don't remember what it was. It was something cliche, but it was really like the idea, or no, it was bet on yourself for you and for Duke. And so it was me. Yes, I was losing the security of a full-time job, but it was also like I'm betting on myself, and I'm going to make sure that I win it, kind of thing. And yeah.
So in like second grade, I got someone we both know. I'll tell you later, but I had a crush on a girl, and it wasn't second grade. It was like
someone I know.
Yeah, she went to our high school. So it was like
say her name.
Third or fourth grade, Brooke Colson.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I had a crush on her, and of course, she was like dating some gangster at the time, or had been dating some fucking wankster.
Yeah, sounds about right.
So I'm at my sister's basketball game with my mom and my dad, and like, of course, I'm like talking all the shit on AOL, I think it was at the time. I was like, oh yeah, well, he's a pussy. Like, tell him to bring it on, or whatever it was. And so like I'm at this basketball game, and then he comes in with like a couple of his buddies, and they're looking for me. So I'm like, oh shit, I got to go outside.
AOL, man, that tells how old we are.
yeah. AOL. Like AIM or whatever it was.
That was the first like instant messenger.
So I'm like, oh shit, it's about to go down. So I don't tell my mom or dad anything. They're watching my sisters. It was basketball or volleyball. I don't even remember. I just remember the highlights. So I walk outside. They're like, hey, why don't we go play football? And I know goddamn well what that means. So I'm like, all right, let's go. So we go up to this like field, and basically me and this dude started getting into it, and we're like shoving each other. He got me in a headlock, but the thing was, he brought like 7 people. So we went up, and there's like 4 other guys. So I'm like, all right, do I get my ass kicked here? Do I fight back and get jumped? Like, kind of.
It was just you?
It was just me.
Just you.
So this went on for like
bad odds, bro.
Well, this went on for like 4 or 5 minutes. We're going back and forth. And then my dad comes up, because he's like, where the hell did Joel go?
Yeah.
He comes up, and he's like, hey, what's going on up here? And I was leaving, and then and the dude's like, don't be a pussy. That was the last thing I heard. So I swear to God, dude, your mind is so shapeable when you're young. And this is how I know, because there's been so many times. Like I did.
So did you win, or was there no fight?
There ended up being no fight. I was like, dude, you can take. She ended up being a lesbian anyway. Oh, shut up, Brooke. But it goes to show you how meaningless. But he said that stuck with me so long. So there's so many times like in life that if I'm like you were talking about, I'm in this comfort zone type deal. My thing is, I'll just be like, dude, don't be a fucking pussy. And I'm like, I'm not a pussy. And I'll just goddamn, it's the stupidest thing, but I've been using it for literally over 20 years now.
Got you this far.
It works, man.
Yeah.
It does. I'm like, all right, well, am I being a pussy right now? I think I am. All right.
Thank God your dad came up, or you might have been jumped by 7 dudes.
I would have probably fucking sit that.
Jiu-jitsu.
Held my own.
Yeah.
Held my own. No, thank God he did come up. Because he was a badass, dude. I'd never been in a fight or anything before that, so I was going to get my ass kicked. And I think I was kind of getting my ass kicked already.
Yeah.
But that's what
don't be a pussy.
Growing up's all about.
Right.
Gotta get your ass kicked a few times.
So I think we talked about a lot of good stuff, covered a lot of good stuff. I do want to ask you one more thing, though. What are you doing different for Duke than your parents did with you, as far as like confidence, not feeling like he is going to be as timid as you were?
I think that it's hard to say. I mean, I feel like I'm doing a lot, but it's honestly just having those conversations with him or even so he had a T-ball game last night, and I was like, all right, like Dad helped you, or his first T-ball game, I helped him get everything lined up, help him get his helmet on. So the first inning yesterday, I said, all right, like the first inning, I'm going to help you make sure you got your glove on your right hand, and help you get your helmet, get your hat, grab the bat, all that. But then after that, I want to see you do it by yourself, and just having that conversation with him. And so it was actually pretty cool, and I wish I could have recorded it, because I had the hugest smile on my face, because Like, it was legit cool. So the first inning we did that. Second inning, he was up to bat, and I said, all right, so you're going to be at the end of the batting order, but you got to pay attention so that you're ready to bat. And so I went and I was the first base coach, and there was 2 more people in the dugout, and he started grabbing his stuff and got his helmet on, grabbed his bat, and was waiting for his turn to bat. And I was like, that's awesome. That's my dude. And so it's just that approach of, and I don't know if I'm doing it right. I'll never know if I'm doing it right, but I just know that it's the mindfulness, the conversations. Even there's days where, obviously, like, I have an online business, so I'm on my phone, but there's, like, if we're in the car or if I'm sitting there and I'm on my phone, it's like, no, I need to throw that stuff to the side, because it's the mindfulness of, all right, like, this is dad time now. I need to put this stuff down so that I can be a dad, so that he can see that I'm being a dad and not just a babysitter or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I think the biggest thing is just me being mindful in my approach. And
I think more than that, dude, you're leading by example.
That's what I was just going to say. Yeah, I'm willing to bet with everything that you've gone through, turning it into where you are now, and being, taking those risks to move forward for you and your son. He sees that shit.
Right. See, and that's why dudes need dude time, is because like, maybe when I went home later, I could think about that. But, like, I was just sitting here saying, I'm just mindful in my approach to how I'm, bringing up my son, whatever. But you were like, no, you're leading by example.
Exactly.
And so then in my mind, it's like, you know what? You're fucking right. Like, I am leading by example. And then it pushes me forward to keep getting better at it. And that's,
there's no perfect, man. There's no like right.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's definitely a wrong. If you're sitting there abusing your children, you're wrong. But there's so many different rights. You know what I mean? Yeah. And we're never going to get it perfect. I think as long as you're aware of what's going on and you're able to see things and adapt and change, like see when things aren't going the right way, or see when you can use something as a learning experience, you're always going to be one step ahead and heading in the right direction.
And I think, again, so like with your coaching business, with mine, and even with what you're doing in business too, like that's an approach that you can take to anything, of just like you do something, you assess the results, and then you make a change based off of the result that you get. Like, that's really, any kind of take on life, of just being aware of what you're doing. If it's working, then keep doing it and keep dialing in if you want to. If it's not working, then you need to be able to switch it up. And that's where I think where like the power of a coach comes in. I've got my own coaches, mindset coaches, because I know that I can get off track sometimes. And, but it's just, just everything that you said. Because even you brought up stuff about being a dad, but I brought up the same kind of conversation about life, of like me knowing that I'm never going to have it figured out. You brought up the same conversation about being a dad. We're never going to know the right way of doing it. Same thing with fitness, relationships. We never know the exact right way, but it's
that's because there is no right way.
Exactly. You just got to figure out what works for you in your life and then move forward on it.
There's multiple right ways, I guess. Is a better way to say it.
Yeah.
Where can people find you and support you after they go to joelstaleyfitness.com, but they don't have enough money to proceed with me?
What a dick move. Oh, man.
I will say, before we plug you, there's been so many times that like I'll get an app and it's like, McDonald's fry cook, 4 out of 10 in terms of motivated, not financially ready to move forward. I'm like, hey Tim, I got a hot lead for you. I get them off my schedule.
Some pretty cool dudes.
I've gotten you some good ones.
Those guys are legit. I'm still working with one, but let's see. So Instagram at dadbod reinvented. I got my website.
As you can see, Joel's success has not gone to his head at all.
But yeah, so Instagram at dadbod reinvented. And then my brother and I, my youngest brother, Anthony, he helped me to create a website, dbr365.com. Just a simple domain name. And I don't know, my whole thing is I'm no internet. I'm logical when it comes to fitness, nutrition, mindset, healthy lifestyle, but I'm no internet.
Blast that shit, bro. It's the best website out there.
For sure.
Check it out.
Yeah. It is. It's a legit website, but that's one thing that I put in with it is like, just go check it out. It's simple and then just read through the shit. And then people like it, then of course they can reach out. If not, then
check him out. Tim makes some good, he puts a lot of thought into his copy on his Instagram. He's very methodical. He's very deep. I get a kick out of reading them, and I know our listeners will too if they're not already checking them out.
I got a question. Who's more shredded? Oh man, Tim's got you.
I can deadlift more. I was going to troll you the other day. I went to the gym and looked. I was like, all right, before I make fun of Tim, I got to make sure I can add 10 pounds to this.
That's no, I'm working on that. Like there's some push-ups that I'm doing where you take 2 8-inch wooden dowels and you stack them on top of each other.
Oh, I saw that shit. Yeah, I can't do anything like that.
So that's a challenge that I'm working on. Then another one is deadlifts, because one of my clients is like, hey, when are you gonna challenge me to a deadlift? And I haven't deadlifted in 8 to 10 years.
I was just getting back into it myself. So I saw your post and I was like, all right,
I just figured
don't be a pussy.
Yeah, don't be a pussy, Joel.
So I just figured I'd try it. And then Duke and I are also we do rock climbing up at Lifetime.
Oh, nice.
And so I'm trying again, like growing up working on a farm, your forearms are like catfish bellies, and then you go work behind a desk or physical therapist and forearms start to shrink. And then now Duke's 5, we can get access to the rock.
Just gotta jack off more. Grow
there's no time.
Forearms.
But
all right, Tim. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, man. I certainly appreciate it. That was a hell of a story, man.
Yeah,
very inspirational.
Because it's real.
Yeah, 100% real.
Yeah.
So I'm sure.
Just like, don't be a pussy is real to you.
Don't be a pussy.
Yeah, like we all got, I don't know. I don't want to keep going off, but like it's really just, I live life intense, and even my mom says you need to slow down and do all this other stuff. And it's like, but if I do slow down, then it's the whole idea of like I'm not getting enough out of my life. And so slowing down is good for some people, but I got a lot of things that I want to accomplish, and
we'll have to have you back on because there's a lot of different rabbit holes we could have gone down.
Yeah, for sure.
You're local, so we'll definitely have you back on.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Well, you definitely have an inspiring story, man. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing it. I'm sure that was probably getting on a podcast is probably stepping out of your comfort zone as well. So
yeah, I like being here. It's
nice.
Cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for tuning in to the Dads Who Live podcast. If you guys got anything useful out of that and you had to have, please give us a like, share, 5-star review. We do this stuff for free, so we need your support to continue doing it. We are on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes. All the formats are on www.dadswholiftofficial.com. We also have a apparel line that's on dadswholiftofficial.com as well. You can find us on IG. IG handle is Dads Who Lift Official. We are on Facebook as Dads Who Lift Podcast, and then we have a Facebook group of 30,000 like-minded dads trying to be their best selves, best fathers, stay fit at the same time, and that is called Dads Who Lift Official on Facebook. If that's something you're into, please check it out. But again, guys, please like, share, 5-star review, tell one friend. If you could tell one friend about the podcast, that'll help us out tremendously. Thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good day.
Surrender, it's forever, this right here forever. I ain't bigger dead than alive, I ain't bigger dead than alive, dead than alive, yeah. I ain't bigger dead than alive, dead than alive, Make it sure that you know why.